Hey everyone, Chris here. So my notes are down here, so if you see me looking down a lot, that's why. So this is my third video covering the spells in the new Player's Handbook. My next video will cover all the new spells appearing in the Player's Handbook. But in today's video, I'm covering existing spells that got changes that I just find interesting or worthy of note. We're going to get a little bit of a look under the hood today, as I saw some sweeping changes that revealed a fair bit about their design philosophy in their approach to a lot of this spell redesign. I will conclude the video by covering all the changes to the Conjure spells. I'm not worrying about the Ranger Conjure spells like Conjure Barrage and Conjure Volley. You saw those in the playtest, and they basically went through as they were in the playtest. But if you weren't following the playtest, every Conjure spell in the Player's Handbook had massive redesign, so they're basically new spells. If you were following the playtest, I'm sure you're curious what changes these spells had before becoming official, though they're all pretty close to the versions you saw in the playtest, and I will go through all those. So I'm recording this video on July 10th, and I will be spending the rest of July making more Player's Handbook release videos that are all available on my Patreon right now. Patreon support is how I'm able to create this content for a living, and any support you can give is appreciated. Wizard level or higher patrons can chat about this video in the Spells with Interesting Changes channel on my Discord, along with the Rules Changes channel, the Rebalanced Spells channel, Spells That Were Not Fixed channel, and dedicated channels for all the videos yet to be released. If you'd be willing to support this content, please click on the Patreon link in the video description. So let's get started. So these are in no particular order. So let's start with Sleep and Color Spray. So this is the old Sleep spell here, and what it and the old Color Spray spells have in common is you rolled to determine how many hit points worth of creatures could be impacted by your spell. At level 1, this is exceptional, but it degrades very fast in usefulness as you level up, and that's about to change. So I'm going to bring up the new Sleep spell. So here's the new Sleep spell. It says Concentration now, up to a minute. Didn't used to be Concentration. Each creature of your choice within a 5-foot radius sphere centered on a point within range, so very tiny area now, must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw or have the incapacitated condition until the end of its next turn, at which point it must repeat the save. If it fails the second save, the target has the unconscious condition for the duration. The spell ends on a target if it takes damage or someone within 5 feet of it takes an action to shake it out of the spell's effect. Creatures that don't sleep, such as elves, or that have immunity to the exhaustion condition, automatically succeed on saves against this spell. So it's been turned into a saving throw spell. Very small area, very high impact. If they fail their save, they're incapacitated. If they fail 2 saves, they're unconscious. However, they are getting automatically a second save if they fail the first one. So you might just incapacitate them for 1 round. So for a first level spell, I still think this is pretty good, but I don't think it's too powerful. And if I'm comparing it to spells like Tasha's Hideous Laughter or something like that, I think it is comparable. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is probably the better spell against a single target. Sleep, of course, has the option of getting multiple targets if they're tightly together. So, I think they did a pretty good job here. And let me just bring up Color Spray quickly. And so this one remains instantaneous. So remember Sleep, they added Concentration. It says you launch a dazzling array of flashing colorful light. Each creature within a 15-foot cone originating from you must succeed on a Constitution saving throw. So they've added a saving throw, or they have the blinded condition until the end of your next turn. And that was the effect of the old Color Spray. So instead of rolling for hit dice, they're making a saving throw. And otherwise it's the same. So the whole mechanic of rolling hit points and then affecting that many hit points worth of creatures, that has been removed from the game. So there is a whole category of spells. Right now you see the old Spirit Guardians up on your screen, but spells like this where they create a dangerous area And then, sometimes creatures take damage when they enter the area. Sometimes they take damage at the start of their turn. Sometimes they take damage at the end of their turn. And you don't really know unless you look it up usually. Though there's certain spells like Spirit Guardians that people tend to memorize because it's a good spell, so people know it. So they've kind of gone in a route of making all these spells work the same way now. So I'm going to bring up the new Spirit Guardians. So a lot of it's the same. Level 3, action to cast, range self, concentration up to 10 minutes. Protective spirits flit around you in a 15-foot emanation, basically the same. For the duration, if you're good or neutral, their spectral form appears angelic or fey, your choice. If you are evil, they appear fiendish. When you cast a spell, you can designate creatures to be unaffected by it. That has changed. So one of the big limitations of the Spirit Guardians in 2014 is you had to see the creatures that you wanted to be unaffected by it. That restriction has been removed. So if you have, an ally that's around a corner or invisible or hiding, you can now still have them be unaffected by your Spirit Guardians. Any other creature's speed is halved while in the emanation. That's something that they didn't change that I kind of wish they had, because that creates some weird interactions. I wish they had just made it difficult terrain or said that movement is doubled through it or something like that, because what'll happen is, you have a creature that has 30 feet of movement. They're in the Spirit Guardians, so now it's 15, and they have 5 feet left. They get out of the Spirit Guardians, and suddenly it's not halved anymore. And now, how much movement do they have left? And who knows? So they didn't change that. So whatever you do now, you probably should continue to do with the new version. But let's get into the big changes. So it says any creature speed is halved in the emanation. Whenever the emanation enters a creature's space, and whenever a creature enters the emanation or ends its turn there, the creature must make a wisdom saving throw. So the old version, if you entered their area, then nothing happened until the start of their turn. If they entered into the Spirit Guardians, then they took damage, and then they took damage at the start of their turn, right? But now, and this is pretty much universal, if you move your spell so that it is in the area of somebody else or there's an enemy within it, they take the damage right away. But they do not take the damage at the start of their turn. They take the damage at the end of their turn. And so if you have the spell enter somebody else's space, or somebody enters the spell space, or they end their turn there. That's pretty much how all these spells work now. So this will prevent, with Spirit Guardians, one of the common strategies is you would pull a creature into the Spirit Guardians, and they'd take damage. And then at the start of their turn, they would take damage a second time. This is actually going to kind of prevent that from happening. But there is the possibility of, entering their area with your Spirit Guardians and doing some additional damage that way. So you do get some compensation. And the damage is the same. And it's radiant damage if you're good or neutral, and necrotic damage if you're evil. That's the same as well. So on your screen, you see a spell called Befuddlement, and you might be wondering if it is a new spell. It is not a new spell. Befuddlement is the rename of Feeble Mind. So this is a renaming of the Feeble Mind spell, and the mechanics are different. So with the Feeble Mind spell, if a creature failed its saving throw, intelligence saving throw, then it had its mental stats all changed to 1. This is a little bit hard to run because you don't necessarily know how to roleplay a creature with a 1 intelligence, 1 charisma, 1 wisdom. I think it was all 3 mental stats. Correction, I should have looked it up before recording the video, but it was your intelligence and charisma that went to 1. Your wisdom was not affected. Anyways, they have redesigned it, but this is the replacement of the Feeble Mind spell. So a lot of it's the same, the range, the duration. You blast the mind of a creature that you can see within range. It makes an intelligence saving throw. That's the same. On a failed save, the target takes 10d12 psychic damage and can't cast spells or take the magic action. And that's the effect. And at the end of every 30 days, the target repeats the save, ending the effect on a success. The effect can also be ended by the Greater Restoration, Heal, or Wish spell. On a successful save, the target takes half as much damage only. So now it does damage, and you can't cast spells or take the magic action for as long as it lasts. And not for the duration. The duration is instantaneous. So you're not going to be able to use Dispel Magic to get rid of this. You're going to need Greater Restoration, Heal, or Wish, or wait 30 days. So that's the new Feeble Mind spell. So Dimension Door is up on your screen. This is the new version. Okay, so I'm assuming most of you know what the old Dimension Door does. And I read this, and at first I didn't notice a change from the old version. So it is very close. But when I did notice the change, it made me very happy. So it says that, let me find it on here. You can also teleport one willing creature. The creature must be within 5 feet of you when you teleport, and it teleports to a space within 5 feet of your destination space. I don't know if you noticed the difference there, but the old version of Dimension Door also has the restriction that the creature you bring along has to be your size or smaller, which means if you are playing a halfling or a gnome or something like that, you can't teleport your willing allies who are medium-sized, which is really annoying because Dimension Door is such a good spell, but so much worse if you're playing a small-sized caster. And they have gotten rid of that restriction. Very glad to see that. Much happier with that. Even though it's a tiny change, it's a very good change. Okay, I'm going to actually talk about 3 spells here, but I'm showing you the new version of Fireball. And once again, this is a spell I read for the first time and I didn't notice the change. But then I did notice the change and it made me think of other spells, and I noticed the same change on them as well. So just to read it, a bright streak flashes from you to a point you choose within range, then blossoms into a low roar with a fiery explosion. Each creature in a 20-foot radius sphere centered on that point makes a dexterity saving throw, taking 8d6 fire damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. Flammable objects in the area that aren't being worn or carried start burning. And then if you use a higher level spell slot, it does an additional d6 damage. Range is 150 feet. Casting time is an action. 3rd level evocation spell. Did you notice any changes? Because I didn't the first time I read it. It's very, very close. There is one little change, and that is the old Fireball said it goes around corners. So spells normally when they hit like a wall or a door, they stop. That's the end of the spell, whether even if the spell's area is supposed to move past that. The spellcasting rules tell you that at that point, that's the end of the spell, the new end of the spell. And there were some exceptions to that, and those exceptions were in the spell descriptions, including Fireball. Fireball said it went around corners, and it immediately made me think of, what about Fog Cloud? What about Darkness? Those went around corners as well. I think some of the Cloud spells went around corners as well. Not anymore. No spell goes around corners. They all follow the same rules for area of effect. So you don't... I've had it where people say, don't I get this guy around the corner? And you have to say, well, you go check the spell description, see if it says whether it goes around corners or not. You will not have to do that anymore. They're all the same. None of them go around corners. So this is the old version of Hunger of Hadar, and this is a spell known for bad wording. Because it says you create this area of blackness. What does that mean? Is it like a fog cloud of blackness, or is it just darkness? So here's the new version of Hunger of Hadar. It does answer the questions. So it says, you open a gateway to the far realm, a region infested with unspeakable horrors. A 20-foot radius sphere of darkness appears. So we know what that is. And darkness is also covered in the rules glossary. So it has a strict definition. Centered on a point within range and lasting for the duration. The sphere is difficult terrain. It is filled by strange whispers and slurping noises, which can be heard up to 30 feet away. No light, magical or otherwise, can illuminate the area, and creatures fully within it have the blinded condition. So this is something we always kind of wonder, because the old version kind of said that as well, but we weren't sure, are they blinded because they're, in a fog, and then what if creatures are outside of the area, can they see in or not? And those questions weren't answered. But this actually does answer those questions, which I'll get back to. Any creature that starts its turn in the area takes 2d6 cold damage. Any creature that ends its turn there must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take 2d6 acid damage from the otherworldly tentacles. So this is how it works. It's darkness, so if you don't have dark vision, you can't see through it. If you do have dark vision, you can see through it. This is not the darkness spell. It's regular old darkness. And so if you have dark vision, you can see through Hunger of Hadar. But if you're inside the area, then you have the blinded condition. So at least now we know how it works. This will be a quick one. Lesser Restoration. Just a little notable change. Look at the casting time. The old Lesser Restoration took an action to cast. They have changed it to a bonus action. Alright, you should see the Wish spell up on your screen, and I don't have the entire Wish spell up on your screen because if I did, you wouldn't be able to read it because it'd be too small. Wish is a huge spell with lots of text. And I will tell you that it's pretty much the same, but it does give you an option that it didn't give you before as one of the set options you can choose. These are the ones that include the spell stress and all that stuff. So you don't want to do these lightly, but you'll see here, Sudden Learning. You replace one of your feats with another feat for which you are eligible. You lose all the benefits of the old feat and gain the benefits of the new one. You can't replace a feat that is a prerequisite for any of your other feats or features. It used to be that there was no way you could change your feat. Once you picked a feat, that was the feat you had for the rest of your life. So I thought it was notable that with the Wish spell now, they specify that you can replace a feat. But don't do it lightly, because when you do anything other than duplicate a spell with Wish, there are significant consequences that have not really changed. So on your screen is the 2014 version of Grease. This spell has been in previous editions, and previous editions always had mechanics for setting it on fire. You might have the Grease spell and then set it on fire, and creatures in the area take burning damage, and then it would usually go away. And I have seen many DMs assume that you can still do that. So here's the new version of Grease. A non-flammable grease covers the ground. So that's basically the only change, by the way. But basically they have said that, yeah, it's non-flammable. We never intended it to be something you could set on fire. So this is just a clarification. All right, here is Hunter's Mark. This is the new version. Don't get too excited. It's not changed very much. But there is a change that I thought was worthy of note, especially if you're thinking of builds that might use Hunter's Mark. It says, let's see, you make mark one creature you can see within range as your quarry. Until the spell ends, you deal an extra 1d6 force damage, used to be the weapons damage, to the target whenever you hit it with an attack roll. So the restriction that you needed to use a weapon for Hunter's Mark has been removed. So you could use Hunter's Mark with Eldritch Blast, for example. Kind of an interesting little change, I thought. And I'm not sure how I would exploit it in builds, but I will probably be thinking about that in the future. But that is a little notable change, I thought. And we got a couple spells here where the range has just really been increased by a lot. Blindness, Deafness is one of them. You can see the range, 120 feet. The old version, range was 30 feet. So they went and, quadrupled the range on Blindness, Deafness, which is a solid spell. So giving it a 120-foot range is very nice, especially considering that you can hit multiple targets with Blindness, Deafness if you upcast it. So having that additional range is going to give you a lot more options in terms of which targets you choose for the spell. And here's the other one with increased range. Now, it's still range of touch, but it's the amount of dark vision you get. So the dark vision spell used to give you 60 feet of dark vision. Now you're going to get 150 feet of dark vision. So there might even be a reason why a creature with dark vision might want to cast a dark vision spell on themselves, just to increase that 60-foot dark vision range to 150 feet. That's quite the difference. Okay, so Conjure Animals, the 2014 version was the one where you summon like packs of wolves to attack your enemies, and it would kind of take over the fight. Not anymore. So the new Conjure Animals, and if you saw it in the playtest, it's very similar. You're going to create a group of spiritual animals, and when creatures move into their area or end their turn there, the animals can attack them and do damage. And there are a few differences from the playtest. First, this spell got the Spirit Guardians treatment. So if you don't know what I meant by that, then you've skipped to this spell. You should go back and watch my bit on Spirit Guardians. But the Spirit Guardians treatment, this spell got it as well. So the spell moves within 10 feet, enters an area, or ends their turn in the area, it can make the attack. Advantage on strength saves was 10 feet in the playtest. It's now 5 feet. And this is maybe the biggest one, is the spirits, which during the playtest, we had a lot of debate about this. They're now clarified that they are intangible. Because there was question whether you could, summon these animals and they could block corridors and that kind of thing. So they've now clarified that these are intangible animals. Okay, so Conjure Celestial. So the old version allowed you to summon a Celestial of a certain challenge rating. Now, what it does is it creates a pillar of light, and it can heal your allies and damage your enemies, and it creates bright light. So the playtest version of it was really powerful. They have toned it down a little bit. So first off, it's gotten the Spirit Guardians treatment, and the damage it can do has been reduced to 6d12. It was 8d12 in the playtest, which was probably a little too high. So I'm actually pretty happy with that change. Okay, so Conjure Elemental, the old version, of course, summons an elemental, challenge rating 5 elemental, and then you could increase the challenge rating if you upcast it. So here's the new Conjure Elemental, and what it does is it creates an elemental spirit. The spirit does not move, just stays in one place, and if you get too close to it, then you can become restrained and you take damage. So that's what the new one does. Here's the differences from the playtest. First off, like with Conjure Animals, they've clarified that it is intangible. Once again, that was something we were having a lot of debate about. The restrained creature also, if they just come within 5 feet of it, they are not pulled into its space anymore. They're just restrained wherever they are. And notably, this spell did not get the Spirit Guardians treatment. It did not have its times that they make saving throws changed, which I thought was interesting. But anyway, that's the new Conjure Elemental. Okay, so Conjure Fey, of course, the old version allowed you to summon a Fey, and it was based on challenge rating, and you shop the monster manual. The new version summons a Spectral Fey that attacks your enemies, you can move it around, and it causes fear in your enemies as well. And from the playtest, there is pretty much no change except for a clarification. It says the source of fear is from both you and the Fey Spirit. So if a creature becomes frightened by the Fey Spirit, it is also frightened of you. So that is now clarified. Now we're going to go to the one that everyone was wondering about, Conjure Minor Elementals. Did they nerf it? Because it was really powerful in the playtest. And the answer is, they did not nerf it. Conjure Minor Elementals is very, very powerful. So the old version gave you a swarm of, just like mephits and that kind of thing. But yeah, this new version, you have a 15-foot emanation. It's difficult terrain for your enemies. And if you hit them, you do an additional 2d8 points of damage every attack. And if you upcast, you get an additional 2d8 damage per spell slot level. And I thought they would nerf that. They did not. It is still 2d8 per spell slot level. The only change from the playtest is you choose your damage type. The old one allowed you to choose bludgeoning. The new one allows you to choose acid. Otherwise, they didn't change it, and I do think this spell is overpowered. Last one, Conjure Woodland Beings. This one allowed you to summon like a bunch of pixies who could all cast Polymorph, but not anymore. All right, so Conjure Woodland Beings, there was some talk about these spells being similar to Spirit Guardians. Conjure Woodland Beings is very similar to Spirit Guardians, except it's a Druid and Ranger spell. 4th level, you conjure nature spirits that flit around you, 10-foot emanation for the duration. Whenever the emanation enters the space of a creature you can see, whenever a creature you can see enters the emanation or ends its turn there, so Spirit Guardians treatment, you can force the creature to make a wisdom saving throw. The creature takes 5d8 force damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. A creature makes a save only once per turn. In addition, you can take the disengage action as a bonus action for the spell's duration, and a d8 per spell slot level above the casting level. This is all the same as the playtest. There's one change, and that's the question we're all wondering when we saw the playtest, is because it was labeled as a 5th level spell, and it's a 4th level spell in the 2014 Player's Handbook, and they said they weren't going to change spell levels, so it has been corrected. It's now showing as a 4th level spell here, so it'll be a 4th level spell in your new Player's Handbook. Thing I wonder is, why didn't they reduce the force damage to 4d8? Because they didn't. So Conjure Woodland Beings does more damage than a 4th level Spirit Guardians, because that would do 4d8. I guess you do have these smaller radius, so maybe that's the reason. But anyway, they have changed it to 4th level in the new Player's Handbook. Otherwise, it's the same as you saw it in the playtest. So that's it for this video. In my next video, I'm going to cover the new spells in the Player's Handbook. So those will be Arcane Vigor, Divine Smite, even though I don't know if it's a speller. It's obviously a spell now, and I guess it's a new spell. Elementalism, Fountain Moonlight, Jalarzi Storm of Radiance, Power Word Fortify, Sorcerer's Burst, Starry Wisp, Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron, and Yolande's Regal Presence. And then I'm going to move on from spells and get into feats, and we'll do probably a few videos on feats because there are a lot of them and there's a lot to cover. Of course, feats got major revisions, so I'm looking forward to sharing those with you, and then probably classes and subclasses after that. So hope you'll join me. Otherwise, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.